Dzień dobry, witam Państwa.
Hi everyone, a very warm welcome.
Organizatorzy mi tutaj napisali,
The organizers had
przykład
told me
motywacyjny.
that this is a
Więc mam Państwa do tego zmotywować.
motivational speech, so I need to motivate you. Yes, we lost yesterday a football game.
Lechia, zaraz
and-
mamy zgodę z Lechią.
Yeah, Lechia is just around the corner from here, Lechia Football Club, and we are friends with them.
Edukacja
So we might say, actually chant like football fans, vocational education Erasmus. That's what we could do. That's a path to follow. So jokes aside,
Pobudzić, jak ma być motywacyjny.
yeah,
Sobie tak zdefiniowałem, że
so
Państwa może
I
zmotywować.
decided to motivate you to a reflection about vocational education. And a lot has been said today already, very important things, important information. And I got to ask, where are those slimming pills? Because they definitely come in handy. Right.
No, ale skoro są to tak.
But if they are there,
Ważne informacje oczywiście.
they can be used. So important information.
Pani profesor bardzo wiele rzeczy ciekawych
Ma'am, professor said very many important things, and at the beginning she said she doesn't deal with vocational education, and my thesis is yes, you are addressing it, you are handling it, it's just that you don't know about it or you are not fully aware of it. And some slogans, some words that lead us to a conclusion why every education in the contemporary world, and in fact it has always been so in classical sociology of social movement, well, it says how our education affects our movement when we are adults, from when we start a family and when we are adults. So even what I do in my primary school affects how I place in my professional life. So every stage has a professional impact. But there's an extra dimension here. So how do we do this? Okay, every education is vocational. Every kind of education is vocational. So thinking about this, right? So some slogans that are self-evident, and we talk about them a lot. We all talk about globalization, and today the director and the professor, they talked about this, and the EU is an example of globalization, about what's happening. But why do we need to repeat those slogans? Because they are important, they significantly affect our lives, we know them from textbooks, from documents, and they stop being meaningful anymore because they are so worn out. But we do experience them in crisis. When the pandemic broke out, you know that what globalization is. No sunflower seed oil because all the sunflowers are in one country, grow in one country. In Spain, there are no tomatoes because they're grown in Ukraine. And oil is grown in Europe. Even in Africa, there's hunger because there's war in Ukraine. That's globalization. That's the result of globalization. Because globalization is about this. We move around in the EU, all those words that we use, transferability of skills, employability, etc. That's related. But we are all affected, and the development of the technologies of the future, that's also self-evident. But we need to reiterate that, and we touch upon that. 3 years ago, we didn't have ChatGPT. And that is true, please remember, and now it is there. On a side note, I just finished evaluating grants for 2030 Horizon. There is a call for digitization and educational change, and I wanted to check how AI and digitization influences educational processes. So in 3 years, those 3 people who won, they would say 3 years ago there was no ChatGPT. Please note how it works. And like we heard from the professor, the EU gives us tools. Yes, true, but also you can see that they are not catching up. It's not to criticize Horizon. This is how long projects take and research processes as well. It takes time to deliver good projects, and very good projects were submitted. I can't tell you more because I'm under the oath of secrecy. And even today I was evaluating the final winner. But this goes to show the differences of the rhythms where we operate, how we operate. I heard on the radio, I think the day before yesterday, in Poland or in Wrocław, somewhere else, there will be a factory of AI. And I really don't know what that means, how there can be a factory of AI, but this is a digital, technological revolution that affects us all. The climate and energy crisis, blue competences and green competences, and demographic transformation in Lower Silesia. 50% less people were born than 5 years ago. And there's a municipality in Lubuskie region where no one was born over several weeks. So we're going to shrink by half very soon. And that's important because those people who are born today will be at university in several years, in 20 years, and so there will be half as many students than now, and there will be half as many people born in Poland who are going to enter the labor market. So the technological change might actually be a solution for us in Poland. So there is a demographic crisis out there. Depopulation, migration, all those maps from Statistics Poland, you will see how settlement changes. Warsaw, Krakow, the Tri-City area, Wrocław area, they are being filled with people, and interior is depopulated, regardless of the region in Poland. And that's important because in Kłodzko, in Lower Silesia, in Kłodzko there is a protest from parents that schools are being closed. A school is being closed, with school with great results, but it needs to be closed, no students. So you need to think intra-regionally. You need to think about the vocational education network here. And speaking of those trends, there's something that is the least considered: individualization. Yes, the Western world is individualized as opposed to maybe China, that is collective, and we have individualization. But what does it mean? It means that every single one of us, me, you, and you, every person is an individual and individually responsible for what they do, for how they organize their lives. So you learn, you get motivated. If you are not yourself, if you are in a group and you don't feel yourself, something wrong with you. You are 7 years in a single company, something wrong with you, right? That's the viewpoint. So it's important here that we actually realize our identity. So even biological gender considerations are a matter of choice. We are in this cultural phase where individual freedom matters. I'm not criticizing that. It's just the way it is. And this individual freedom translates onto various things. Be yourself above anything else. And that's a task that we in our culture, in the EU, but elsewhere as well in the West, we need to be individuals. And we need to think about our well-being. We need to be individually responsible for our destiny. And that affects everything that we talk about in education and the job market. The oldest problem in the world. So the relationship between education and the labor market. Something that we believe is obvious is that education is a function of the labor market. There's public school, vocational education, in order to prepare people for jobs that are available in the labor market. So something's needed in the market, you go ahead and give us the workers. But that's obviously not true. Please look at what schools do. Schools were invented to do three things, in fact. altogether, and that's impossible. There are no pictures here about that, but I'll just let you know, and you can read it in my book. I recommend it. Will schooling ever change? Freely available. So schools are there in order to prepare people for work, yes, but on top of that, as importantly, schools are there to prepare citizens to be able to live in a state of law, where there are laws. And it's also a space to realize individual interests of families and each and every one of us. So schools are a function of three ideas. They serve three masters: the state. There's a discussion about educational reform, right? The state needs something. Should religion be there or not? Should history be there or not as a subject? Yeah, the economy, right? Do we teach entrepreneurship or not? So that's another master. And they're also there so that my son goes to the university that will be good for him, so that he makes more money than you do, right? Or maybe just as much. Okay? At least just as much, but not less, right? That's what I'd prefer. I would rather he made as much money at least as me, and I make quite good money. And every parent, especially middle class and upper classes, that's what they think about. Another digression here. These pictures show you what's going on. My son is in the 8th grade, 14 years old. Very important choices ahead of him, job-wise. I'm in the parent-teacher conference, the first days of grade 8, everyone crammed into a small room, and okay, we are going to be told how to choose the high school. And the teacher says, okay, that's the system, these are the scores, and the parents are listening, and then suddenly they all panicked. Okay, so we have to analyze that and, know things. But you can have the best grades on your exam, but never get into a school because you will not apply to the right schools in Wrocław. There are students who have great grades but never got into a school because they applied to wrong schools. So now it's a race. Parents race against each other. And the question to the head teacher: is the school analyzing how well you allocated your students to high schools? And before that, also very important, there's an ambivalence in the system. Don't give our students too heavy tasks. They have to have comfortable education. But in just a moment, students start racing against each other with tutoring, etc. Courses that prepare for exams, etc. So, there's a world of ambivalence, dilemmas, entanglement. And that's why I told you about the three masters for education, because this means that school is never good enough. There's always something wrong. Either it goes too much towards the state or the economy or individualism. And so there's always something lacking. And we always keep arguing about school. And school has been like that for over 100 years, like that, because it's more or less okay from the point of view of those three entities. And that's why what I write about in my book, why things got back to normal after COVID. We expected differences because of technology. Please imagine 700,000 students in Poland trained within a month to use Teams and other tools. Right, it happened in 3 days, right? If I said that half a year ago, everyone would start complaining. They would say, oh no, I never go to training. But then COVID came and it suddenly became possible. We did some studies, sociologists, teachers, etc., in professional journals, and the results: schools will never be the same again. We experienced that, we learned, we are going to to restructure the whole educational culture. And then 3 months after the pandemic, we go back to normal, and everything is exactly the same as before. Not even a trace of the technological change in the educational thinking. Another example from my school, we did interviews during COVID. There was the homeroom teacher of my son, right? He had meetings with parents online, right? And then after COVID, a parent-teacher conference. Why do we have to come here? There are four parents coming out of 30. Why don't we connect on Teams? And the homeroom teacher says, never, never. This is never going to happen. So you can see how permanent those changes are. And that goes for vocational education as well. But technology is pouring in all kinds of schooling. Apologies for the digression, but it's all about our topic. Speaking of the relationship between education and the labor market, right, is there a light here? No, there isn't. This one doesn't have a light. This pointer doesn't have a light. Now I'm looking at the adjustment problem or mismatch problem. One of the most pressing matter is to have the right match. So the match between education and the labor market. Classically, demand and supply, to match the two. I myself came up with a system to diagnose industry-specific jobs. You know those announcements from the Ministry of Education in February, what jobs are available, and I came up with that, I got to say, so we have that. So there will be information about what jobs are required, and schools will adapt in their curricula, right? So that's our classical thinking, how to match the structures. The local observatory of the labor market in Lower Silesia does research about that, about the requirements for skills in businesses, and classical adapting or matching human resources in businesses, also very important. The HR courses at universities, every second master's thesis is about that, how to select the new employees, how to onboard them, how to motivate them, how to manage human capital in companies, also about matching one with the other. And last but not least, matching work to the predilections and aspirations of an individual. And that is one of the more important, if not the most important topics. So we have to feel that we feel good in a workplace, that we are well matched with our workplace. So feeling good in your workplace is your task. You need to be satisfied. If you are not satisfied, well, change something about it. We have opportunities now. We have 4% unemployment. And Eurostat says 2%.
So now the increased unemployment rate prognosed in Poland is a result of unfortunate changes in legislation, which says that you cannot register out, cross out a person from the unemployed list, unemployment sector. It was 3 months previously. Now, even if a person says, no, I don't want any longer, they still have to be registered as unemployed for 3 years. Therefore, there's the blurred data about the unemployment rate. But coming back to the individual adjustment of a person for a job and the other way around, the school is expected to prepare a person to be able to ask questions to themselves, does this job suit me? Does this job really help me self-realize? Well, there is a myth about Z generation But some of them is true, and it is our task to face this issue. Today, education is multi-phased. When you speak education, we think school, but there is also more to them. It's a training, special courses, self-education, education in a workplace, education in social relations. So it's even more. It's also education within the family. And formal education becomes now the object of observation of politicians, qualification specialists, and so on. And we now are translating it into the formal and real training about education. This is obvious that we have to face it, and these global trends and the task of adjustment can be translated into educalization, which is the key part of social life. I believe, and I've believed it for years, that educational policy is the key policy in the management of society. Whenever we move, health issues, sport, economy, business, we always end up with the question about training and adjustment of competence, education to the needs. Education is the most important thing, is the axis of the whole social and economic system for these three laws of which I mentioned at the beginning. And this educalization can be associated with medicalization to show you how important medical issues are important in social life. Medical issues are now being defined in medical categories. This is an illness, and we can cure it, as medicine proposes. You've got depression, take a pill. Same can be translated. You feel bad in social relationships, go to the specialist, take a pill. So previously, we educated our educational issues through prism of other fields. Now, we are facing them, addressing them, and all other social issues through the prism of education. Unemployment, it means that people had bad education. What can we do? Retrain them. Offer them better training. So this educalization issue has several layers. It's both private life and public life. In public life, it's the relationship, the state economy in schools. It sounds bad to our individualists because the educational system in Poland is not for us, it's for the Polish economy, it's for the Polish state. It's not the fact that the half of the Polish budget is just to make us live happily. This is a classical sociological perspective. Don't be naive optimists telling us that education is maximize your human development, like after Rousseau, that it's for your inner development and happiness. Now, the slogan is education is to prepare an individual to live in a society in which the individual is able to merge with the system smoothly, and their appearance doesn't break the system, but helps to continue and develop the system. This is classical sociological thinking, but I believe there is something to it. It's not that Prime Minister Tusk and the Financial Minister try to invent new developments, because they think in systematic terms, in terms of a system. Before somebody becomes a Minister of Education, they already know what changes to implement. because they've got children. But when they become ministers, they face difficulties saying, oh dear, it's not that simple. My saying is, when I have power, I will change everything. But when I get the power, then I am stalled. I am blocked by the forest of regulations, legislations, and various levels of education. And Jesus, it's not that simple. I cannot make everybody happy by my actions. And then I just run from pillar to post, sorry, ministers, saying things like that. But I just want to show you that it's a really complex issue. Remember, education is a public good as well as private, and each part should profit from it, because I learned a lot just to be able to deliver this speech to you today. I managed to follow such a path in my life that I found myself in this role, and I hope and I want my son to be so educated that he also finds a good role for himself. My advice to him is, do whatever you wish, be happy. And he tells me, don't tell me what I am to do. And I tell him, okay, do whatever you wish, you consider good. And that's our conversation. Every parent has a dilemma. We should be committed to development of our children, but parents are not committed to the public good, but they are committed to the good of their children. And there is some ambivalence. Society, parents, education. The state needs more and more well-educated citizens. The philosophy of human capital from 1960s says the better education of society, the better economic result. And we believe that if we are better education, our life, if you are better educated, we will have better lives. This is a kind of self-propelling issue. Previously, in previous epochs, education was for the elite. The education in the shape in which we know began at the turn of the 19th century. Previously, it was for the elite. The son of Lord Stark was supposed to become the Lord, so his training was that necessary for the Lord. He learned to read, to dance, he attended ballrooms to learn dancing. He learned about the calls of each nobility. He was supposed to be wise in the elite system of that epoch. Whether he was stupid or wise, he was predestined to be the king, and the elite was prepared to be in elite position. And that was underlined by the belief that education is development of wisdom. But education is not for produce better, to sow better. At that time, that was not the model of education. This approach for being better skilled only became at the beginning of the 20th century, when education became popular. Well, my time is up and I'm only halfway through. Okay. And today we think that the educational framework doesn't suppose us to be wiser. I know it sounds weird, but the skill we had thanks to our being at school, the skill of being useful for the society, which then is translated into other elements of education. Formal education becomes an important element of our education. We all believe we need longer education, better education. We know that school gives only preliminary stage of education. This is only the basic competence, but we are supposed to be learning for the whole of life. Lifelong learning is no longer a slogan. It's now the reality and the necessity. So our task is to motivate people to educate, self-educate, to develop an informal education and transform informal education into occasional. Because we were gaining these skills previously, but nobody had it organized or systematized. Because hadn't people learned throughout the history of mankind, we would have died. We would have been eaten by tigers, mammoths, or whatever. And now look at our place. In the European Union, we see how important are the skills gained thanks to informal education. So even the parents are motivated to still continue learning. Even by Facebook, the parents have to have a look and see the ranking of schools for their children. What is important? This is wanted to. Okay, let me skip the issue. So, as a result of this thinking, we've got the vocalization of the academic education. It has been so for about 20 years. All the students have complained that there is too much theory at their academic education because there is too much theory compared to practical skills. Because they say they don't need reading much theory, much about philosophers, because they study to gain certain professional skills, to give me concrete, tangible abilities, after gaining of which I'll be earn such and such money. The model of education now is being transformed. It's not teacher pupil, but now I am a person offering educational services, and I must be prepared to meet the needs of my customers. And the last thing, micro, and this is confirmed on the micro level. So first we need the general education on the secondary level. Again, pupils ask, why do I need to know so many details about the microorganisms in biology, amoebas, and so on? And I reply, to make you be able to make analysis. In biology lesson, you use the language of biological analysis. In chemistry lessons, chemical analysis. Whatever field it is, you will be able, when you start working, to perform analysis. Of course, when children ask, what is the knowledge about amoebas for, you need to give them the answer, to show them that they need such knowledge at skill developing basis. So that is the idea. But really, when we look at our educational system, we can see that the old way of thinking is still present. So how come a pupil cannot attend classes and pass the exam or validate their qualifications? We had a discussion about micro proofs. Can you get a diploma without spending several prescribed number of hours at a school desk? It's difficult for some people to understand that now it's different. Professional advisory services become the axis of the system. Education is the key social policy. Advising services are the key axis of the educational services. And this is tackled by law, by legislation. So now we can see that we change from the classical understanding of profession. Now we've got life design and life guidance instead of old-fashioned issues. So this is the new idea. Life guidance, professional guidance. There are new tasks for those who want to support people in their transfer from education and labor market and their professional skills. And we've got a lot of talks, integrated system of qualifications, register of qualifications, branch centers of skills, sector councils for competence, individual development accounts. So there's the integrated strategy of skills. So we have it. We've got the framework, what Professor told us. European Union is pushing us to implement certain solutions. And we've got the philosophy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. My outline is a bit too long. But let me sum up. Please have your, inverted commas, homework. The old system has not yet disappeared. Academic professors still think in an old-fashioned way. They don't apply interchangeable, flexible thinking. And of course, school is to provide wisdom. Certainly, you must be generally educated in the fields of literature, history of literature, to be aware of your background, of your identity, social, cultural identity, and so on. This is important. It's not that it's rubbish. No, the new education is not to forget it and to be subordinated to the new flexibility. But there is also the need on various levels. Individual, social, national. The pandemics showed us that school is not for teaching anybody or learning something. The school is to take care of kids, to make them develop social relationships. It's more than just competence in the field of mathematics, biology, or whatever. And when we think of this in business terms, so even kindergarten develop soft social powers, which is the basis, the background for all kind of cooperation. All kind of education, formal or informal, is professional because it's subordinated to the labor market. Thank you very much.